Hi everyone! In my last video I spoke about ADHD, and before that I was talking about an autistic trait, specifically about intense interests. Okay, now this video is going to be another autism one, and today I'm talking about the trait or symptom of autism called stimming. Now if you don't know what stimming is, essentially it's the repetitive use or repetitive movement or behavior of certain actions or certain ways that someone with autism might seek out sort of sensory stimulation. It's quite a varied thing, actually. It's not just any one thing, so I will explain it in detail now. But first I gotta make a mention: if you like the content and you want to see more after you watch this video, follow, like, leave a comment, put questions in the comments, thoughts as well, repost the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, etc, etc, and now I'll move on. Alright, so lots of people I've met who know what stimming is have only associated with people with autism. Now, while it is very common in people with autism because it can help regulate your emotions, it can help regulate sensory input, it can help reduce stress and anxiety when they feel overwhelmed, anybody can stim, okay? Now, stimming is a very varied sense of movement or motion. For instance, someone with autism, for example, if they stim, they might rock back and forth, they might headbang, they might click their fingers, they could do anything. They might mess around with certain objects, rearrange objects, hand flapping is one of them. Now, I've also noticed that, in my experience anyway, lots of the time when people see these behaviors, especially more extreme or obvious behaviors. Now, if you're clicking your fingers, lots of people click their fingers for all sorts of reasons, Sometimes most of the time it's an intentional thing, sometimes they do it on purpose, it doesn't matter, people click their fingers. However, not lots of people may, in a stressing situation, start flapping their hands, right? Lots and lots like this. In my experience, lots of people I've met have been under the assumption that basically if you do this, if you are flapping your arms, flapping your hands, if you're rocking back and forth when you're distressed, especially in public, they make the assumption you're autistic, and what this is you're basically out of control. Now, that's not the case, okay? Because lots of the time, for instance, now kids with autism, if they stim, they might be seen as it's bad behavior, or they're too hyperactive, or they're strange in the eyes of students anyway, or being weird, because admittedly, when you see someone doing some sort of exaggerated motion, like flapping their hands, flapping their arms, rocking back and forth, that kind of thing, or making noises, because that's another thing that might happen in stimming. There might be repetitive noises that they make, like no groans or whining, or clicking, anything, right? They're under the assumption, it can be quite distressing, I suppose, for people looking at it, because they don't know what it means, because they don't do it. But here's the thing, stimming is usually a very unconscious thing. It's unintentional, okay? And for people with autism, is literally just a method of trying to soothe themselves when they feel overwhelmed. Now, it's hard to explain because, like I've said before, when it comes to autism, there's a scale, right? Because it's a spectrum. There's the lower end of the scale where your behavior doesn't present as obviously, and most of your issues are more internal. And because it's less obvious, lots of people then under the belief that you might not be autistic, and I've come across people who have asked me if you actually are autistic, and I'm like, yes, I have the diagnosis. Anyway, but then at the high end of the spectrum is where most of the misconceptions get placed, and this whole idea that what an autistic person is someone who makes noises, who acts really abruptly, who doesn't listen, who can't communicate, who is very disruptive, that kind of stuff, which isn't true. The high end of the spectrum, your brain is still working, it's just working differently, and your behavior a lot of it is unintentional, And that's the thing, it all comes down to communication, because stimming can also be a method for people with autism of communication, trying to convey to someone how they feel or what they're thinking, because they can't vocalize it, because they can't quite understand what it is they want to say, so their actions take over, their actions will try and say, help me, I'm in distress, or help me, I'm overwhelmed, I'm upset, that kind of thing. Now, there's also this idea that stimming, that I've come across, where stimming only occurs in people with more severe autism because it's an unintentional behavior. But like I said, there are really subtle movements of stimming. It can even be like walking back and forth, like pacing. And like I said, anybody stims, and it's usually to do with the senses, you know? If you're flapping your hands, that can be a visual sensory situation, you know? They're trying to use certain senses, certain movements to soothe themselves when they feel overwhelmed. So a visual sensation, yeah, like seeing your hands flapping, that can be calming for some people. Think of like stress balls. Lots of people use stress balls, right? They get really anxious, they get really fed up at work or with life or something, and they have a stress ball because otherwise it'll get out of control and they'll start to feel really down. And that they squeeze it, yeah, constantly squeeze it over and over and over again. And that calms them. It's the same thing. So, and again, I can't emphasize enough that it's usually just a method to soothe themselves. For instance, lots of people really, really love smoothing cats, right? Or it's a nice sense when you smooth something that's really soft or really fluffy, you know, really gentle. And it can feel really nice and calming and relaxing. It's that kind of thing. It's the same thing. Like chewing your pen in class when you're trying to concentrate. You do it subconsciously, yeah? And it's considered pretty normal behavior, really. And unfortunate for your pen or pencil, you know, because you chew it to pieces. But it's considered very normal behavior that people do. But that in itself can be a method of stimming. And again, with things like objects and stuff, you know, like obsessively rearranging things. It's this subconscious method of just trying to have some sort of control when you feel like you're losing control, right? It's so hard to put into words because it's a very varied situation. It's very varied, lot of movement and things. Headbanging is also another form of stimming. Now, I headbang a lot, mostly to music, of course, not anywhere else. But that's my go-to when I listen to music, not just because I feel like that's the thing to do, but because when I do it, I feel very much in the zone. I block out everyone else. I don't feel my anxieties, and I can just go for it. You know, it makes me feel good. I stim sometimes, and again, it's little things like clicking the fingers. I do that a lot. Usually when I'm making coffee, when I'm thinking, I click my fingers subconsciously. Or no, this is funny because I'm a big fan of anime. You can even pick up these like movements from things that you know. And one anime I watch is Tokyo Ghoul. It's my favorite anime, and the character and this other guy, they do this thing, right, where they bend their finger. What they're doing is breaking or clicking their finger, which is quite violent. I'm not doing that, but since doing that, I did it once, and I don't know, it just felt nice having the fingers in this odd position. So occasionally I do that. So does my brother. Anyway, but there are all sorts of stimming, and it's like the whining. It can sound distressing, and I suppose it's hard to explain that, like, if you're not someone with autism, but you know someone who is, when you hear them making noises repetitively, when you see them making these movements, it's because they're really struggling to communicate with you how they're feeling, and it's good to be really sympathetic towards that. So, yeah, and don't get me wrong, it's an unintentional behaviour, and yes, it's usually a more positive thing for the person with autism because they're just trying to, like I said, get control, soothe themselves, feel less stressed. But there are some stimming behaviours that can be quite harming to other people around you, in which case those ones need to be not suppressed, they need to be managed. You know, those are the things that if you have autism, you need to learn to manage, or if you're someone who doesn't, you need to help them learn to manage. Things like punching. Punching can be one. One of my brothers, he punches a lot of the time. He just does it when he's really frustrated, really angry. But he gets frustrated or angry really quickly, and then he'll just punch. Now, it's not a good thing, because that could hurt me, it could hurt one of my other brothers, it could hurt one of my parents. That's bad, right? So over time, we've had to teach him, you know what, if you feel that frustrated and angry, punch, and you feel like you need to punch, you like punching because it gets that frustration, that anger out, that impact, then do it to like a pillow, you know, or a teddy bear. Don't hit a wall because that'll hurt yourself. Don't hit any of us because that'll hurt us. So hit a pillow, you know, in which case it's not harming you and it's not harming anyone else. So there is that side to it, in which case it should be regulated. But like I said, stimming can happen. Anyone can stim. But with people with autism, it's just a heightened form of communication, and even if it looks distressing, try and be sympathetic about it, because they're just trying to communicate, alright? And that's the gist of it. Anyway, I think that's a good place to end this video. I think I said everything I really wanted to say. You know, if you stim or if you have particular behavior, put that in the comments, because again, I just like knowing like about these things or what and how people are varied to each other. It's very interesting to me. Anyway, and like I said earlier, if you like the content, if you like this video, then please leave a like, comment, you know, put your questions in the comments. Yeah, requests for future videos in the comments, subscribe to the YouTube channel, repost this video, please, you know, and I guess I'll just see you in the next video, which will be about another disorder or psychiatric condition associated with ADHD. So if you're interested, check that out as well. Until then, enjoy your day or night, whatever time it is for you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.